Hey, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you're ready for a fun, exciting night tonight. Just going to give it a minute or two, let everyone kind of get into the webinar. I see the numbers rising here. Um, just out of curiosity, I like to kind of ask for those who, as you're pulling in, can you just put in the chat for me? Um, I'd like to know, is this your first webinar with College A Pro? And if so, like you're starting a heck of a time with the boot camp, or is this long time listener kind of a thing? Yeah, just get a sense here. Yes, okay, first, okay, we got some. All right, so especially for the first timers, I'll just tell you, like you're in for a treat. I hope, because. I know about you, Dan, but you and I do webinars all throughout the year. But there's something about this boot camp. I just start to share too much information, too much. I give away too much good stuff. So that for those who are coming for the boot camp, I can almost guarantee you're going to learn something new. And so uh, pick up some strategies, if you will. The other thing, I'm just curious. Would you mind just let me know? Like, are we class of 27 or class of 28, class of 29? Because we definitely have some material to kind of customize or cater to the specific years, or there might be certain slides that we want to really point out for you. So I'd love to just get a sense of that too. Okay.
Oh, lots of
A
27s.
lot
That's
of
beautiful.
juniors I see. Yeah.
Yep.
Some sophomores though too. I love it.
A couple of sophomores. Yeah.
So for those juniors, I'm sure you've already looked at a calendar and know this, but you just realize we're a handful of months away from being able to submit college applications. Are we really doing it that soon? But yeah, in about 5 months we can be submitting applications. So yeah. Oh, someone asked a great question. I'm going to actually put this in the chat. Um, yes, this is being recorded and it's going to be posted to. I just put the page. Save the link. Check back tomorrow. And whatnot. And let's just segue from here. So I know I just had you guys put a bunch of stuff in the chat, all that good stuff. As we go through the webinar tonight, if we said something where you're like, huh, what? Or maybe you have a question, or, sparked a question, please ask questions. But I'm just going to say, please put it in the Q&A. Because honestly, when we get going, if you put it in the chat, frankly, we lose it. There's going to be so much stuff happening in the chat probably. So really put the questions in the Q&A. That helps us keep things organized. We'll try to answer what we can. Sometimes we might answer it live, but just know that if it's like super specific, like we can't maybe necessarily get into a specific answer in this format, but we'll try to answer what we can and all that good stuff. Okay. Um, have I covered all the basics, guys? Is there anything else you want to say?
You did great, man. Let's rock and roll.
All right, let's do this. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's go. Here we go. We're good. Like we see College A Pro. All right. So tonight, we're talking about navigating college admissions, and frankly, I would say the reason this can be so important, and Dan, you probably hear this all the time too when you talk to parents, but I think the biggest mistake, if I was to lump all the mistakes that families make under one kind of general umbrella, I would say the biggest mistake is assuming that the process works the same way it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. It doesn't. The process always, there's nuances, there's things evolve, things change, but the process is not the same. And so, families who understand the strategy early are going to have dramatically better outcomes. And outcomes, I'm talking both admissions and financial aid, the cost, if you will. So it's that, just the key is to start early, be proactive, and understand the nuance to the different strategies. And especially for anybody who's new, first timer, College A Pro, who are we? Like, actually, I would say we're a collection of experts in the field. And we are on a mission. We are on a mission to try to help end this, student debt crisis. And I think the little phrase here is just by helping you shop smarter for college. I'd like to say frankly, I think we transform this whole college process. And so we are here to try to really get you as much inside information as possible. And I mean inside, information. Again, you have, golly, I don't think I want to do the math and figure out how many years of experience we have between us. But Jason, you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm Jason Sloan, one of the planning experts here, but I'm on the financial aid side of things. So I only know enough about admissions to be dangerous. You should ask me what my GPA was coming out of high school.
No, but
Uh,
you have
so
more to your story than that. You have a
I
great
do. I
backstory.
do. I do. Well, my backstory is I was actually spent most of my career in higher education. So I was been a college professor since 2002. That's crazy.
Mhm.
And I was a dean for 7 of those years. So I always joke I'm the former dean that spills the beans on how this works. And I've been a financial advisor since 2008. And 2019 is when I really got into college financial aid, this niche because of my own kids. So I'm a parent. That's the most important part of this. I'm a parent of 3. I got a senior in college. I got a sophomore in college whose birthday is coming up next week. And then I have a ninth grader in high school. So parents, I feel your pain. I've been in your shoes. I'm going through it right now. Every time my phone rings, I know they want something. So I'm sure you all can relate to that. What happened now? But yeah, I love being part of this team. And with JP and Dan, y'all are in good hands tonight. But I'm going to be keeping an eye out on the Q&A for any financial aid questions. If you have financial aid questions, drop them in the Q&A and I'll handle those for you.
Fun fact: you should also ask him about his musical career.
Yes.
Right, right, right.
But
No,
speaking of musical
Dan's the
career,
one with the musical career.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll say, speaking of musical career, I'm going to use that to pivot to you, Dan. You want to
Well,
share a little
thank
bit
you.
about you?
Yeah, well, hey, folks, it's great to be with you this evening. Super excited to join these two guys. Um, yeah, there's a little bit of a musical background all through high school, college, doing a lot of music theater and working at theme parks and helping to pay the college bill, folks, by the way. That's really why it was because I was on the hook for paying for college myself. But have been with College Aid Pro now for 4 years. Have my own independent practice that I've been doing for 20. And like JP, I actually do both admissions and financial aid. So super excited to be with you. And last but not least, JP, bring it home, buddy.
Yeah. So
Santa Claus.
my joke is I'm not homeless. This is part of my Santa Claus look. So please, my wife says you're not ZZ Top, but my beard is nowhere long enough for ZZ Top. But anyway, the so I kind of have a similar story as Jason in a way, in that I worked in higher education for 18 years. I worked at the University of Southern California. I was director of financial aid. Started back in 2000, and I don't know if I didn't ask in the chats when we got. I don't know if there's anybody from California here, but if so, if you are familiar with the Cash for College program that's administered by the state, I helped co-create that thing 25 years ago. So
Wow.
anyway, the
Cool.
I worked in the dean's office. I was an adjunct faculty member at the end of at the end of my time, and so, um, but yeah, I basically come with that insight of going. I know how we think when we, in financial aid and admissions. I know how we think. I know what we're looking for. I know what moves the needle, that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, when I left USC, it was because I was like, I'm only helping the kids that are trying to come to USC, and there's so many more people that need help. And so that's when I decided to leave the nest, if you will. But anyway, so I think you guys are in good hands tonight. So let's go on here. So if you haven't figured out, College A Pro, we have experts that cover all the fields from admissions topics to financial aid topics to loans. I mean, there isn't really anything related to higher education that we don't cover. And this just kind of gives you a sample of the kinds of things that we probably tackle every day. And again, we it's not me alone, it's not Dan alone, it's not even Jason alone. This is the most collaborative group I have ever been a part of. And so when you work with College Pro, you're working with a team of experts. So anyway, that's enough about us. Let's talk about this. What I frankly like to think of this as, how do we navigate this maze to college, right? And you can start off with, there's roughly 4,000 colleges, but it's like at the end of the day, we got to figure out how to get accepted into that final college and frankly, and how to pay for it, right? So there's things that we got to look at, like which schools are an academic fit. Frankly, we got to look at which ones we can afford. We got to find which ones then fit our students. The I wants. I want to be at a big school. I want to be at a football school, or I want to be at a small research school, whatever, right? We got to find those schools. Got to come up with an admission strategy so you can get admitted to those schools, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of pitfalls, if you will, that are on this maze to college. So I'm hoping is that tonight we're going to give you some insight into what, especially with, again, our focus is admissions, but like, what is it that Dan and I are seeing now, and what are we kind of already seeing for the future? So with that, I'm going to let Dan talk about some college admissions trends.
Yeah, thanks, JP. Yeah, I mean, look, and here's the facts, folks. If you look at what's happening out there, there's a lot of things that are impacting what you're doing, how you're approaching it, the kinds of colleges that you're going to consider. I mean, one of the biggies is, I can tell you 20 years ago when I started doing this, students were applying to way fewer number of colleges. It's amazing what's been happening with the number of applications that are being submitted. So, that's a given. In addition to that, we're also looking at other trends that are taking place here. So, JP just put some more up there. So, selective majors, they've really shaped the admissions outcome. What are we talking about here? Well, if you're looking at something in particular that is super duper competitive, it could be the engineering programs, the business programs, computer science programs. Even with the advent of AI, don't assume that when you see numbers on the websites out there and some of the places where they say, well, 85% of the students get admitted to the school, that necessarily transfers over to those particular majors. Know that it could be super duper selective to get into those programs at those schools, especially the top programs that are out there. Here's another biggie, early admissions. What are we talking about here? Early decision, early action, restrictive early action, all these unique ways that colleges have positioned how students are applying to college now. And quite frankly, some of these colleges love this thing known as early decision because they then know without any question what their incoming freshman class, at least 50%, 60% of their incoming freshman class might look like. So just know that that's a technique that they're using to help their numbers. They're also looking at it as a way to promote scholarships and your ability to get scholarships. That's why you're going to see a lot more of that, and it's also why we do. We're a firm believer in using some of those to your advantage, depending upon the kinds of schools that you're looking at, and in particular, if you want the money, because you have to keep up with that.
Wouldn't you say, Dan, that I feel like for me, that applying early, whether it's early decision or early action, doesn't it almost feel like that's the new on time? And like applying regular almost feels late in some ways.
Yeah, you're so right, JP. Well, not only that, but let's also talk about, you and I both have those families that are sitting there still waiting on regular decision answers to come through. And folks, it is painful because if you've applied early decision and early action, even early decision, but early action in particular, and maybe you heard back in December and you're having to wait until the end of March or even the first part of April to hear or get decisions back, it drives families crazy, doesn't it, JP?
Absolutely. I have so many anxious families right now. Because they've been sitting on submitted their application 4 months ago, and they're like, I don't know yet, and all my friends are getting their letters, whatever. And
that's right. Yeah.
Frankly, I'll tell you, like I had 5 of my 2026 kids applied rolling which is arguably my favorite. They
Yeah.
applied rolling, and we had their applications in September, so they had their decisions in October,
Oh
and
yeah.
they to their top schools, and they're like, we're done, we're good, So like they're my least stressed people right now.
Right. That's right.
But anyway,
Yeah. And let's not forget about test scores. Oh my goodness, test scores. Now, for those of you that are in California, we get it. Okay, we understand that the state with the UCs and the CUs is gone, or
oh,
CSUs is.
I got a caveat for that though.
Do you? Okay. But here's the thing, even if you're in California, recognize the fact that if you're applying to any other part of the country, you're going to need test scores. There's very, very few exceptions, especially, test scores come into play anymore for not only admissions, chances or improving those chances, but also scholarships. I mean, it's come back. Granted, there are still some options out there. Don't let that scare you because there are some, but just know that. So what were you going to bring up there, JP?
So for those of to your point about like Cal States or UCs where they are test blind,
Yeah.
they're talking about the SAT or ACT, but they heavily rely on AP test scores, especially the UCs. Like if at UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, UC Irvine, uh, just the four most popular colleges in the country, heavily rely on AP scores. And so one of the things I tell my family is like, you can't wait till your senior year to take APs because you won't have the scores to show that you can handle it. You got to be taking your APs in junior year. But so, yeah, I always like test blind with an asterisk.
Yes, good way to put it. That's exactly right. Yeah. And don't forget the personal narrative. What are we talking about? It's going to be your essay. What are you going to do? What is your story going to be that is going to convince that college admissions rep or that scholarship committee or the honors program that you're the right person for their program? What are you going to do? I mean, it is really critically important that you're setting yourself apart from the rest of the crowd. And that's one of the ways that you can do it because everybody's got the top scores, everybody's GPA, test scores, and everything else like that. But what are you going to do? And also understanding it's become a critical part because of the advent of AI as well and what's happening out there. So please, whatever you're doing, do not use AI to write your personal narrative. It's got to be your voice. It's got to be your messaging so that the school's convinced that you actually wrote it.
Yeah, I one of my kids I was helping this year, I read her personal statement and I was like, okay, this seems like a high school kid. Then I read her supplemental essays to the that certain schools asked for, and I was like, this is clearly someone or something else that wrote these. I was like, it was blatant, obvious. Like or I could tell when parents edited a little too much. But yeah, you're right. The other thing I don't know if any of your contacts and admissions have shared this, but a couple of people I know have shared that they're talking about maybe just even dropping the personal essay
Mm-hmm.
because they're just questioning the authenticity of it, and they're toying with ideas of maybe video submissions, video, or it'd be tough to do interviews, but like at least a video submission. So there's it may evolve, but being able to know your story and being able to tell it will always be important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about some class of 2026 stats here. Applications up 10 or 7%. First generation, which is exciting, is up 10%. How about families using fee waivers? What are we talking about there? Well, that's families where there's a financial need, based on what's going on. Free and reduced lunch, for example, if that's your situation where you're getting those fees waived for those applications. Again, I mentioned this before. It's really the truth. The trend is heading up, not down, when it comes to the number of applications that are students are submitting. And then, some of these colleges specifically are on the common application, and they've got a direct mint feature, which is really cool because what it means is if you filled in all your factual details, you could click on those schools and they will look at it and they will approve you, the student, or moms and dads, your student, for a direct admissions to that school. So just keep that in mind. It's a big opportunity. It's a brand new thing that just rolled out this last year.
So you kind of you touched on this, like some of the what we see now, right? Like what are the things that we see now, and frankly, if and I'm not going to besmirch any other companies or any other IECs, but if you listen to any of their type of admissions type presentation, that's frankly that's kind of where the conversation stops. Like this is what we see now, and so let's just again highlight it. What are the current surges in in majors? Nursing, business admin. Actually, I think I even saw someone in the Q&A about nursing, right? Business admin, computer science, engineering, health sciences, right? And as Dan was saying, these capacity limited majors are becoming more competitive than even the general admissions rates of the schools. Okay. Does that mean that's going to be true for next year, the year after, and the year after? Maybe, maybe not. Like, so what I'm already seeing is that for next year and beyond, we anticipate those surges in different majors are going to be are basically impacted by AI, and people either are running towards and embracing what AI can do to help or make things quote unquote maybe easier. So like but you got to specialize like AI, like machine learning, data science, cybersecurity, or robotics, things like that. Or they might be think of it as fleeing from AI type things, or something that's a bit more AI resistant type of careers like nursing, mental health. Let's just call it health, the health fields in general, right? All the different things that could be. So the idea here is just like, I guess the point I want to make is admissions isn't static. It's going to evolve based upon where we think, opportunities exist. And so, again, AI is probably one of those big factors that's kind of swinging the pendulum around. And I would say why this is important is because if you're going to try to position your child, or if any students are listening, if you're trying to position yourself, you want to think about like, where do you want to be when you graduate? Where do you want to be after you graduate? You want to think about like, especially if you're going to apply to what I would call an overcrowded major, you better have a plan. You better have a very strategic plan, because the admissions rates again drop dramatically. And frankly, that's kind of the stuff like Dan and I help. We always say part of our job is helping families, not just think about getting into college, because frankly, that's easy. It's getting into the right programs with the right long-term opportunities. That's the hard thing, and that's what's unique for every student. And so anyway, that's just something I'd say I've witnessed. But some other things too. This is there's been shifts in the colleges applications, kind of just based on geography, right? College demand is up. I mean, we said like up like 7%, right? That it teaser that's going to change soon. But anyway, college demand is not growing evenly across the country. Where do we see surges in applications nowadays? The public flagships and the highly selective private, not necessarily private, but highly selective schools. Okay. And frankly, those schools are now becoming harder and harder to get into, at the same time, there is definitely a seismic shift happening in the southern schools, places like Florida, who's as a state is investing a ton of money into their educational system. South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, an explosion in growth in those applications there. But in the Northeast and where I'm now in the Midwest, kind of opposite, right? We call it almost like something like a demographic cliff, where simply there are fewer college age students living in those regions. And so why does this matter? Well, the colleges that have fewer students to recruit, they're going to become more generous with merit aid. Like they're going to have to give more bait to reel you in, if you will. So the discount, they're going to discount tuition more heavily to attract students to come to their schools. When you understand the business model of higher education and how they inflate sticker prices and how they then give discounts, when you understand that business model, that's going to give you an opportunity to understand what kind of schools to look at. And frankly, that's how Dan and I and Jason, that's how we help families save tens of thousands of dollars off the college. And it's, by part of it is just identifying the schools where your child is going to be highly valued by that school.
All right. So what is this whole thing called the demographic cliff? Dum dum dum. I mean, it sounds like the beginning of a movie, doesn't it? Something big that's happening. Well, the truth of the matter is, we do have a big change that's going on. You see, when you look at the number of high school graduates coming out of college or coming out of high school heading to college, it's actually been dropping. And in fact, as we can see here, that's like, there was things that happened 18 years ago. It's kind of this ebb and flow that normally happens, but right now we're in that. There's a declining number, which means there are a lot of colleges out there that are aggressively trying to recruit students. I mean, they're doing all kinds of things. That's why we always talk about in the financial aid side that colleges will indeed or can indeed the privates discount the rates, to try to attract you. But why is this a big deal? Well, if there's fewer students going to college these days, then these colleges have to do everything they can to increase their chances of filling their incoming freshman class. So just keep up with that. And also know, look at the state of Vermont. They only had 6,000 seniors come out. Okay. Well, that's not enough to fill all the seats of the colleges that are in that state. So you've got to be very, very understanding why schools like Vermont are really interested in recruiting out of state students. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing all kinds of recruitment processes. Don't be shocked that you're getting a lot of information mailed to you, emailed to you, texted to you. My goodness, every type of option that's out there, they're going to do everything they can to try to reach you, to convince you, students, that their school is the right school for you. And so just be prepared for that. Also know that there's sometimes new programs that are added, new student centers that are built, new dorms. I mean, it's all kinds of different strategies and techniques to try to help attract you to their school. Also, there's this real focus on yield sensitivity. We say on here that it's increasing. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, you have to know that colleges care about something that's really, really particular to every college, which is not only do they want to recruit you, but they want to retain you. They want to make sure that they're going to keep you for your sophomore, junior, senior year, because it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money for colleges, whether it's through the scholarships and the things that they're doing. So students, what can you do so that they think that there's a good chance of not only getting you, but keeping you? Well, things like demonstrated interest. Are you making college visits? Are you actually going to the school, visiting the school if that's important to the colleges? Are you engaging with and talking to the admissions reps? Are you attending virtual sessions that they have? Some of those things. It's a big deal. Are you opening the emails that they send to you? It's really important that you are, and here's the big word, that you're proactively involved with these schools, not inactive, because I'm telling you right now, these colleges use very sophisticated software to track your every move. They care about how many times you click, if you go to the website, what you're clicking around, how long you stay in there, whether you open their emails. All these different things are really, really important. So what are you going to do to show as much love to the colleges as they expect to receive, to give you a chance to get accepted into their programs? It's really important.
I'm just going to confess something, Dan, as you were talking about that. There were two songs that were playing in my head. One was The Police, I'll Be Watching You.
Oh, nice.
The other one was, and I just blanked on his name, but Michael Jackson sang the backup where I always feel like somebody's
What?
watching me. Anybody remember who that sang that song? Pop trivia, put it in the chat. It's
Yeah,
gonna bug me all night.
yeah.
Anyway,
But you know what? We hear that phrase, right? Big Brother's watching. Absolutely, they're watching you in the admissions process, ladies and
100%.
gentlemen.
And I just want to piggyback on this because I'm experiencing this right now with some of my families about the importance. I like to call it building. Well, I like to call it networking, but kids nowadays don't like that word. So I call it building a relationship with your regional admissions rep. And so I have a, I only, I limit how many families I help with admissions, but it's such a time consuming thing and I put my heart and soul in it, but I help a ton of financial folks, right? Just on the financial aid. And so right now, because of the season we're in, we're getting offer letters and some of these families where I only handled the financial aid stuff, the parents are coming back or the kids coming back saying, oh, we want to appeal for more scholarship money, more merit aid, which comes from admissions. And I say, okay, like, let's talk strategy. I'm like, so you want to reach out, let's reach out to the regional admissions rep, like, what's the last conversation you had with them? Like, what kind of rapport did you build with them? And they're like, I've never talked to them before. I'm like, you realize this is the person that you need to have love you, and they're the ones that are going to go to bat for you. Like you're now just asking a stranger. Like, this is so much harder to go back to the schools and have those kinds of conversations. But if junior year, started making those relationships with your regional admissions rep, this is a lot easier to have those conversations. So anyway, it's part of the strategy. You got to play the long game here. So anyway,
we got an answer. By
here we go. Song by Rockwell. Yes.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
Bonus.
I was going to use Chat GPT to look it up, but I was.
Oh, were you?
Oh my goodness.
That would have been unethical,
Oh,
I love it though.
You've got to revert to it, right?
Thank you for that answer. I'm going to play that later tonight.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's be real here when we think about college. Is this going to be a $200,000 decision? Is this going to be a $300,000 decision? Is this going to be a $400,000 decision? That's the reality, especially if you don't plan ahead, right? Public schools can cost more than $40,000 a year. And many private schools have finally broken that $100,000 barrier. And frankly, most families underestimate the financial impact. College will probably be the second largest financial decision you're going to make, after buying your home. Yet most families don't think about it, or they at least wait to get guidance until maybe the senior year. And by that time, many opportunities or have already been lost. We're no longer being proactive. You're being reactive. And I would say, the biggest mistakes families can make are, looking at a school rank when building their list. Oh, that drives me nuts. Or falling in love with a college before knowing the cost. Okay. Let me give you an analogy. I like to use the analogy of think about college in the terms of a car, right? If, when your child turns 16 and they get their license, like, Mom, Dad, I want to get a car. If assuming we're amenable to that idea, usually parents' thoughts are, well, I want that car to be safe and reliable. And here's a budget, and what I've never met, and I have some very wealthy clients, but I've never met a client who said, sure, let's go to the Aston Martin dealership. Let's go to the Ferrari dealership. Let's get you that car. I mean, that's not what happens. But when we talk about college, that's absolutely what you're doing. We can't do that, So the idea is think about colleges in the sense of what's safe and reliable and what can we afford, right? So anyway, how do we kind of get to this process? You get through this maze. Um, I have a very pragmatic process. I'm very logical in how I do things. And so, how do I narrow down what starts? You start a list of about 4,000 colleges. How do I narrow it down to like, hey, these are the schools that I'm aiming for, right? And frankly, the first thing I say is I want to find the schools that are an academic fit, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But if I use my car analogy, this means safe and reliable, right? It's going to get me from A to B. That's what I'm talking about with academic fit. Financial fit. It's can we afford it? That's the easiest thing I'd say. And once we narrow down the schools based on those two things, and those I would call your must-haves. It must be an academic fit. It must be a financial fit. At that point, I tend to hand my students a list of schools, maybe about 35, 40 schools, and say, you now, and this is after I worked with mom and dad about the financial part. I might have handed mom and dad a list of 70 schools, but we narrow it down after knock off the ones we can't afford. And I hand the student a list of schools, maybe like I said, 30 to 40. And I say, you got to go shop the schools for the I wants. So to use my car analogy, it's like, if we said here, we want safe and reliable, and maybe it's Hondas and Toyotas. We want, here's your budget, whatever it is. To your child, it's like, I don't care if you pick a red car, a green car, a 4-door, a 2-door, a hatchback. As long as it met my two criteria, right? That's what we're doing here with the college process. So let them shop based upon their personal fit. I always say, try to get narrowed down to about their top 10. I might be biased because I grew up with David Letterman, but try to get it narrowed down to the top 10. And once they identified their top 10 schools, then we can really focus on an admission strategy. Okay. Very pragmatic, very practical, very effective. So again, academic fit, what are the obvious criteria when I'm talking about academic fit? It's going to be, does it offer the program we want to study? And I'll share this as an example. This happens to me every year. Where I'll have a family that says, I want my child to go to UCLA. I'm like, okay, it's a good school. And then I'm like, what do they want to study? And they're like, oh, they're going to study business. And I'm like, okay, then you can't go to UCLA. Well, no, they got to go to UCLA. Well, then they're not going to study business. No, they got to study business. I'm like, UCLA doesn't offer that as a major. Like, those two worlds don't work. So, pick the school that has that right program, right? There's all sorts of other things I look at and go, academically, am I at least above the 25th percentile for the GPA and test scores? Is this a school that is more traditional in the way it teaches, like sit in a lecture hall and all that? Or is it a school that offers more experiential learning opportunities, like co-ops, if you will? Am I the type of student that wants to be in an honors program? Am I the type of person who nerds out and wants to really go into theory in depth? Then maybe I want to, that honors program. Do I need research opportunities? These are the kinds of things you want to think about when you're trying to narrow down the schools based upon an academic fit. The financial fit, I mean, can we afford it? Like, that's the simplest way to summarize it. And I would just say, if you, in order to know, if it's going to be a financial fit, is you got to know what your budget is. And frankly, and then you got to know what those schools net cost, not the sticker price, but what the net cost will be. And will that net cost fit your budget? And I'm just going to put it in here, put it in the chat. If you don't have a MyCap account, there's the link, set one up. And if you have a MyCap account, I'm going to tell you, pull it up right now, actually take a minute and pull it up. But because I'm going to show you in this next slide, a family that I'm working with, a 2027 family who, I worked with them on, that student's direction, what they're interested in, what their aptitudes, what they're naturally good at. We've worked on that. We've identified the types of majors and all that stuff. So I've done the academic fit with them. I sat with the parents last week. We talked about their budget, financial fit, and we eliminated some schools, et cetera, et cetera. So in the MyCap software right now, their MyCap, and I took off their name, so there's nothing to be I'm not sharing anything private here, but if you go to the the basically the affordability tab, if you will, on your MyCap account, I intentionally don't want any schools that are financially unaffordable, where we flag caution, caution, caution. Like, you shouldn't have schools in there. If we're planning ahead and being proactive, get those schools off there. Okay. You want schools that are affordable. And again, this already took into account the academic fit, but this is what you would love to see in your MyCap page. Okay. Again, this, you want to make sure we have an affordable list of schools. Again, if your budget's $20,000 for a car, you're not taking your kid to the Maserati dealership.
Hey,
Okay.
JP, can I give another analogy? I love that one. Can I give another one?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is for the whiskey drinkers who are on the
Oh, you're
call
speaking my
tonight.
language.
Yeah, so there's a whiskey called Chivas Regal whiskey, and it's now a famous case study in finance and economics called the Chivas Regal effect. And this is the story. The Chivas Regal was a mid-grade quality whiskey for a long, long time, and then they just doubled their prices one year. And then suddenly people started thinking them as top shelf whiskey because they're so expensive, they must be good.
Right.
And so higher ed is subject to the Chivas Regal effect. Don't fall for the don't fall for the marketing trick that a high, very, 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 very expensive school is that much better than a more affordable value price school. I always tell kids who want to go to medical school, look, biology 101 is biology 101 is biology 101. Organic chemistry is organic chemistry or organic chemistry. Doesn't matter if you take it at Georgia Southern University or Harvard. You're going to probably use the same textbook and lab.
This is coming from the dean who spills the beans.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
No, but you're 100% right. I love that analogy, but as you worked in higher education, I worked in higher education. We know I call it just the lies that are of how higher education works. And absolutely, as an industry, they have been manipulated by a handful of marketing firms out of New York. And they have, for 35 years, have been telling higher education, if you want to seem more prestigious and garner more attention and ultimately receive more applications and get people to pay more, jack up your price, even though you're not worth it. You'll start to create that perception of value. And
Yeah,
it's worked
yeah,
until you actually get
this,
someone like us who reads numbers and looks
yeah,
at the data and goes,
yeah.
there's
The
financially no
reason
better ROI.
the reason I tell parents this is to give them some relief from this stress, this pressure, the feeling like I'm going to ruin my kid's life if I don't spend $400,000 for a bachelor's degree. It's just not
I'd say
true,
the
right?
opposite. You
Like,
are ruining
right,
yours and your
exactly.
kid's life if you
Your
spend four
kid can
hundred thousand
your
dollars.
kid can get a wonderful education at lots and lots and lots of places, and you don't have to overpay for it. Now, if you can afford it, okay, I guess, but you don't have to. Lots of good
100%,
options out there that are affordable.
100%.
That's the only thing I know about
It's the harsh
admissions.
truth, but when we look at truth, it's what we need to be basing our advice on and strategy. All right, so narrowing down the funnel again. We did the two must-haves: an academic fit, a financial fit. At that point, when you narrow down the schools, you let your child shop, as I like to say, and they have a variety of personal reasons of why they might like a school or not like a school. I can't even come close to capturing all the ideas here, but I'll just say, at the end of the day, don't approach if like, and I don't do this, like, and I'm sure Dan, speak up if you disagree, but I never tell my students when I'm trying to help them shop, I don't say, hey, tell me what schools you love. As far as I'm concerned, you won't know if you love a school until you've been there for a year, maybe a semester. But like, at this point, you don't know if you love it. So I always say, look at, like, when you shop, look for the things that like just make you go, ew, I don't like that. Cool, knock it off. Take it off the list. It could be just a knee jerk gut reaction, whatever. If there's some reason you didn't like it, knock it off the list. But at the end of the day, I want you to be applying to schools that you found no reason not to apply, and that you could, they offer the programs you need. You would thrive there. I don't need you to love it. I just need you to not not like it. But anyway, what would you say, Dan?
I totally agree. I mean, let's not forget that. I don't know about you, but I've had students sometimes who said it's got to have a Starbucks, or it's got to have a Chick-fil-A, or I can envision myself studying under that big oak tree, in the green space. Okay, again, whatever it is, the bottom line is if you can get on the campus, visit the campus, you got to take it for a test ride. You got to take these colleges for a test ride. If you don't take a college for a test ride, moms and dads, don't be surprised if you suddenly get a call within the first week or two where the student's going, "Oh, mom and dad, I'm at the wrong place. What did I
Oh,
do?"
yeah,
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
One of the things I always tell my family is like, hey, I don't, it's not necessarily always feasible or possible to visit every school on your list before applying, but you need to visit before you commit,
Oh,
on May
yeah.
1.
Do
And
those
because
admit
you're right,
days, right?
every time I've ever had a student come, like in those first few weeks, a month, 2 months later, and they're like, I don't like it here. I want to transfer. My first question always is, did you visit it before you committed? And they're like, no, it just looked great on paper. Or my friends went there. And I'm like, how many times did I tell you don't do that? Like, you got to visit. So, anyway, so let's say you're with either our guidance or you guys DIY it, but you start to get that college list shaped down to like those top 10 schools, right? Now you got to come up with the admission strategy. And I'll be honest, it depends. The admission strategy is going to be different for schools that are not very selective versus the schools that are very selective. And the analogy I use is I do a sports analogy and I say you got to have a defensive strategy and you need an offensive strategy. And frankly, the defensive strategy you need to have every time. You always need an appropriate defensive strategy, regardless of the school that you're applying to. How much the offensive strategy matters is going to depend on the selectivity of the school. The more selective a school is, the more you need a strong offensive strategy as well. So, for those who are wondering, like, what the heck am I talking about? I'm going to say defensive strategy. I'm going to summarize as your academics. You need a good GPA. You want to be at least above the 25th percentile of the incoming freshman. You need to demonstrate academic rigor. So you're not taking the easy classes that you're showing that you're challenging yourself, right? Test scores, AP scores, or SAT or ACT, doesn't matter which one. But you all of that's part of your defensive strategy, and it's very important, for every school, because frankly, if the college admissions, when they take a minute maybe to read that transcript and the grades and all that stuff. And if in that first minute get the impression that we don't think this person would be able to handle the academic rigor of our college, we think they might like flunk out or something like that. It doesn't matter how amazing you sound everywhere else, you're not getting admitted. They have to protect their matriculation, and they need to feel confident that you can handle the academic rigor of that school. So you just got to be above. I always say, be at least above the 25th percentile, and we should be okay. But you got to have that, right? Now, if we're looking at those schools that are more selective, you have less than a coin flip chance of getting in. You need to also have an offensive strategy. And this is where, frankly, most everyone goes off the rails. Dan, I'm sure you remember, but back in my day, we were told like you need to be a well-rounded student,
Yeah.
and all that. And I can't tell you how many times I still have parents like, well, it's like they read a checklist to me when we have a consult, and they're like, well, I have my kid's doing this, my kid's doing that, my kid's doing this, my kid's doing that, and I'm like, great, you just got them rejected from every competitive school out there. Like, well-rounded applications are boring applications, and you need to develop a character, a theme to your application, right? And so that's why I describe it as you got to know your personal brand. You got to know your child needs to know who they are. They need to know what they bring to the table, and they got to be able to demonstrate or explain it, right? And so that entails everything else. I call it strategic extracurricular activities. One of the things about a strategic extracurricular activity is that usually is a what we call fit the major. Anybody in Texas, that's a very popular term there, right? So if I say I want to become a mechanical engineer, I better be having some extracurricular activities that can tie into that versus going, oh, I spend my time swimming or I spend my time in book club. Nothing wrong with that stuff, but it has nothing to do with what I say I want to be or do. You basically demonstrate you have hands-on knowledge or experience outside of the classroom. And here's something that most people don't know. There's a hierarchy to your extracurricular activities. Okay, what a lot of parents read to me and say like, oh, my kid's the captain of whatever sports team, or they're the president of their whatever club and all that stuff. I'm like, that's about 3 tiers down, and it doesn't really move the needle. There is definitely a hierarchy to what types of extracurricular activities like make an impact and move the needle with admissions. And frankly, the high school club stuff isn't going to do much, right? So you got to understand again the strategy behind putting together a strong offense. Of course, you want to. We talked about earlier demonstrating interest. Ooh, build relationships with the regional admissions rep, right? Think about who you're going to ask to write a letter of recommendation. Most kids, when I ask them, who are you going to go to your letter, for a letter of recommendation, they'll say whatever teacher. And I'm like, well, why'd you pick them? Like, oh, because I got an A in that class. I'm like, okay, but what are they going to say about you? I mean, are they going to, do they know you? Like, do you go to office hours? Do you go before class, after class? Do you talk to the teacher about like doing extra projects? Like, does the teacher know that you are intellectually curious, or are they going to say is like, he's a good student? Like that's going to be a terrible letter of rec. So again, do they know you? Things like this, right? Of course, you got to again be able to tell your story. That's the essays. Being able to just convey. I think a common theme is with the essay is like can you talk about your growth through high school? What have you learned about yourself? Like, what do you bring to the table? It takes reflection to be able to write a strong, essay. And I'm going to just share an example of how important the offensive strategy can be. So I had a student, well, let me back up. A family came to me a couple of years, 3-4 years ago, past the whole process. Like we were now in reactive stage. It was like September, October time. And they were super concerned because they're like, we just don't think our son is putting together a strong application. He was working, and I'm not trying to say anything mean, but he was working just with his high school counselor, and he was very proud of his application, but the parents were very concerned about it. And when I met with him and he shared with me what he was putting together as an application, I also expressed great concern about his application. And for example, for his extracurricular activities, on the Common App, you have a spot for 10. You don't have to use all 10, but there's a spaces, 10 spaces. 7 of those spaces, he talked about swimming, different ways he could bring up swimming. In his essay, he talked about swimming. But this is someone who's applying to computer science. And there was nothing in that application that spoke to computer science in any way, shape, or form. But he was so proud of that essay, and he was so proud of all of his swimming accomplishments. And I wasn't trying to take that away from him, but I was like, you got to think about your strategy here and what are you trying to tell admissions? And frankly, I'll be honest, he didn't want to listen to me. So we made a little bet. And I said, he had like 15 schools on his list. And I said, okay, you pick 3 schools of your choice, send your version of the application to, and you can pick 3 schools to send my version of the application to. And we said, we're going to apply early. So he had the decisions at the end of December. And then we said, depending on how it plays out, you submit the other 9 applications regular. His 3 schools he goose egged, got no acceptances. The 3 schools that we sent my version of his application to, he got accepted to all 3. But make sure you understand this. He had the same defensive strategy on both sets of applications. He had the same GPA, same test scores, all that stuff. None of that changed. Same kid, right? It was completely how we positioned his offensive strategy that made the difference. So that's why I say it can really, really matter, especially if you're looking at the selective schools. If you have less than a coin flip's chance at that school, you need to start having a strategic offensive strategy. All right. I think I've said enough.
So let me do I'm going to do a bit of a speed round here because we don't want to keep you guys too late this evening. But just know this, when we're looking at this stuff, what we're dealing with is in the freshman year. So for those of you that are joining us as freshmen, thank you for being here. We love you being here early because you are being proactive about looking at things. So what does it come down to? I mean, from the beginning, you have to have strong academics. Okay. This is building on itself. So understand that. That means focusing on your study habits and all the things that you've got to do. It does matter. It really, really matters because I can tell you the way I describe this is if you have a rough freshman year, it's like turning the Titanic away from the iceberg to get your average GPA back up to where it needs to be to get into some colleges. Make sure that you are having fun, explore your interests broadly, go after things that are out there, try different things. Don't be afraid to experiment with that. Keep track of it from the beginning. Moms and dads, I promise you will be happy for this strategy because you really can get out there in the junior, senior year, starting to work on those applications. And oh my gosh, you can't remember everything that junior did. Also, this gives you a chance to really experiment and try things like visits college campuses that are close by. Don't have to do anything as far as building any college list right now. We just want you to explore. Make sure that you guys are openly talking about college. If that is in the future, don't surprise your student moms and dads by waiting until the senior year to have the money talk. So get it out on the table right now as to where you guys are. And then also, parents, encourage your students with doing some self-discovery. What do they enjoy? What don't they enjoy? In my case, I didn't enjoy anything associated with blood and guts. So I knew I was never going into medicine versus my brother who was 11 months behind me, and we were actually in school together. That's another story. But the fact of the matter is, he loved that stuff. Good for him. But I knew better. All right, sophomore. Let's go into that one now. So sophomore year, same kind of focus. I mean, you still have to understand that this is the biggie when it comes to your academic profile. They're only going to use, and it depends on where you are, by the way, but vast majority, it's your freshman through the end of your junior year of grades that are coming into play, which is why, again, that average GPA is so important. Are you starting to take some AP courses or IB courses if your college, or excuse me, if your high school happens to offer those? Did you take the PSAT or a pre-ACT as a practice? In other words, you're starting to get yourself into the mode of at least trying these things out so that they're not a total surprise to you when you ultimately take them and they count. Because this is a practice mode at this point. Activities, you're still involved. You're talking through college decisions or differences with your moms, your dads, your siblings, your aunts and uncles. Quite frankly, you're probably getting to the point where you're talking to everybody about college, including your friends that are maybe a year or two ahead of you in high school that are looking at these types of things and kind of getting you really excited about it. If you happen to be on vacations by a particular college, stop on by, do a tour if you can, and check it out. And then this is also a great time for you to start having productive summer programs. In other words, what are you going to do with your summer? Okay, look, I get it. You guys want some dead time? Not a problem. We understand that. But also remember the summer is a time when you kind of forget a lot of stuff. So you suddenly start that next math course and you're going, oh my gosh, no wonder my teacher assigned me some summer homework to work on. So it really is an important time that you're focusing on trying to position yourself to really stay engaged in the process.
I would argue sometimes summer is your most important semester.
JP, you're so right about that. Right. Yeah, it really, really can. And especially because there's some great programs that are out there as well. Different parts of the country, different college programs, all kinds of neat things. Junior year is where everything starts to really matter, folks. This is the big deal. You probably have heard people talk about the fact that the junior year for students is going to be one of their hardest. It will be. because of the fact that you're often carrying your most rigorous coursework at that point in time, while also trying to maintain your GPA so that you don't get into trouble. Because again, it counts every time it counts. You're going to be taking tests, the ACT or the SAT during this time for sure, as you're trying to get those under your belt. You're really focusing, hopefully, your activities with purpose. We say purpose, back to what JP said. I won't spend much time on that. Just understand it really matters. It's kind of the laser focused approach to things, that you're not doing the shotgun effect where you've got a scattergram of things. The colleges really do care what you're doing. You're really trying to clarify your college major and how you're going to tell your story, how it's all going to be interconnected and working together. And you're really now doing some meaningful college visits. I mean, you've hopefully had a chance to get on different schools, campuses, and decide, I really like the large, the medium, the small, whatever it might be. But now you're visiting when you hopefully get a chance to see what's happening when the schools are in session, what happens when the bell rings, all those types of things. And you're starting to care maybe about the rankings of the schools. Be careful about that. Don't put all your eggs into that basket. But okay, next slide, please. And then we still have to deal with, of course, building that final college list. And again, JP did a great job of talking through that. We're looking at those likelier safeties, the targets, which are also, they could be 50-50s in the reach or dream schools. Whatever you do, please, 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 please do not fill your list with a whole bunch of reach schools, anticipating that by applying to more, it's going to give you a better chance of getting in. That's not the case. And Jason made this comment very clearly earlier too, is the fact that there's a lot of fantastic schools out there. So keep your eyes wide open as you're doing this. Definitely have the financial conversations. I mean, in your junior year, it really should start coming together. And then also make sure that you're planning ahead with those recommendations and getting those applications done. And then once again, have a great summer that's really focused on maybe a job that you have. By the way, colleges love to see that you've got work that you're involved in, the kind of service things that you're doing, volunteer works. I mean, maybe you're doing test prep during the summer, whatever it takes, as well as having a little bit of downtime, because you do need to kind of refresh yourself so that you're ready to start your senior year, because we don't want to have any senioritis out there.
It's bound to happen a little bit.
Yeah, it will. I agree. So,
especially when the snow melts.
Hey, well, I'll tell you a whole story. Within 2 hours, we had 2 inches of snow, and 2 hours later, it was all melted here in my area today. It's crazy. So welcome to the wintertime. Folks, when it comes to this process, what I don't want you to do, and JP and Jason and I are all on the same page with this, we don't want you to stress about everything yet, okay? For those of you that are juniors, those that are sophomores for sure, and freshmen, there's time. You still have time to do things. We're not talking about perfection being your goal in this case. What we're talking about is that you've really been very intentional to identify the schools that fit your family academically, financially, well, fit you academically, students, but fit the family financially, socially, all those things, that it's really going to work out. It's all about positioning and finishing strong. Okay. I mean, it's really what it is, but it's also not about, wearing yourself out in this process, applying to too many colleges because you're still going to the last minute trying to get things turned in. Maybe writing essays too early. The beauty part about the summer is that you will have time to work on essays. Although JP, I think you and I are in the same boat on this. It's okay to start brainstorming and thinking about things. If you've got the essay prompts, why not? Why not work on it? I mean, it's open. I mean, the Common Application's open right now. You could be working on those things, and
my juniors next month, I'm going to have them start working on brainstorming ideas for their personal statement.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. The sooner the better, because then again, it takes the pressure off of you, right? Don't compare yourself to other classmates. There's going to be a buzz going on at your school. Everybody's going to be involved in it. Try to stay focused on your trajectory, what you're going to do, not others' timelines. Try to avoid social media because it can eat you up. We know that. And then also, continue to perfect your college list so that you really have got it down to a list of colleges that you feel really, really comfortable with. Overall, you've got the time. Just make sure that you stay focused. All right. Um, this whole Ivy or bust thinking, Jason already brought that up earlier. JP has brought it up. I'm going to bring it up again. There are so many great options out there. So just, don't get yourself caught up in the craziness that goes along with that. Make sure that you're doing demonstrated interest any way that you can. But that does not mean driving yourselves and your moms and dads crazy about having to go visit all these schools, spending all that money to do it. I mean, there's lots of things to do there. And then also try to do everything at once. I promise you, if you spread it out, this is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be times when it's a sprint, but you really need to just try to keep yourself from getting burned out because I promise you, at the end of the day, we want you to enjoy your senior year in high school. We also want you to enjoy this entire college experience and process. All right, JP.
Last slide.
Yay.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost. So yeah, kind of say, to stay on track here, plan your courses for the senior year, right? If for juniors, if you haven't taken the SAT or ACT, let's get those registered. I always say plan to take it twice. So I think ACT, there might be one this next month, SAT in April. I might have switched that around, but plan on taking it twice. Try to find 10 to 12 lists. In fact, to the anonymous question that I was trying to respond to, I'll just answer this right now. I always say try to find around 10. Like I have some kids that some of my best, most successful kids had like 6 or 8, but around 10. So it could be 8, could be 12. Someone that I always say have a few reaches. I don't like that word reach, but have a few reaches or likelies, a few targets, have a few. Well, I'm sorry, I like reaches. Have a few reaches, a few targets, a few likelies or safeties, whatever.
Yeah.
Try to visit some schools, right? It's not necessarily just always for the sake of like, do I like this school? But it's when I tell kids to visit a school, it's to go, what elements of this school do I like? And what elements of it did I not like? Like journal that, keep a track of that. So you kind of get a sense of the things that are important to you and what are not. And then again, summer is arguably your most important semester in many ways. So make the most of it. If you haven't figured out right now, by now, I'd say, families definitely like to hire us or and whatnot, because at the end of the day, we try to help provide clarity, provide direction for students. I think that's something that is sorely missing, and very much seems to be wanted. Obviously, we help build strategic college lists. This is what we do. We find the schools that are a good academic match and a financial match. We try to create authentic strategies to wow the college admissions. So they say, yes, we want to accept you. And yes, we want to give you lots of free money, right? At the end of the day, we're just trying to help reduce college costs. We're, again, what I said at the very beginning, we're trying to end the student debt crisis. So to do that, we're trying to help make you smarter shoppers in this process, if you will. So if you are got questions, or maybe you just want to check in and say, am I on track? Am I doing the right things? Use the QR code, grab your phone and scan the QR code, book a quick consult. Talk to any of the pros and we can, like I said, maybe just want to check in. I think, Jason, you put in the chats there a link that it's the landing page where all the webinar, these 2 bootcamp webinars are at, but there's also where you can book a consult. So you either use the QR code or use the link in your chat there. But
yeah,
the idea is,
it has the calendar on that landing page there.
What's that, sir?
The link I just put in for everybody is how you can book a meeting. It's the landing page, lots of information, and the calendar where you can click on pick a date and time and get on the calendar.
Right, exactly. So the idea is, again, maybe you just want to check in, just see, am I on track? Am I doing what we should be doing? Um, we're happy to talk with you. And uh, I don't know about you, Dan. I personally am totally already filled for class of 2027s. So like I have no stake to go, hey, I'm full. And Dan, I don't know if you might have a few spots left, but
I do. Yeah, I
yeah,
have
I
a few
mean,
spots left.
for like I've already filling up my sophomores and freshman class. So I'm just going to
Right.
say this is not something you should wait on. This is something I would tell you, book a consult. And one of you guys want to share about the deadline? Because I'm going to get
Uh,
that data wrong.
yeah, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you book by tonight and get on a calendar, you'll meet with somebody before March 7th. And the reason that's important is, of course, you want to start as early as possible and get some, immediate relief. Action absorbs anxiety, but also the pricing is going to go up for our full service admissions package on March 1st. And so if you book a consult tonight, you sort of get grandfathered into that pricing, I believe. So that's a really important thing. So if you're a DIYer, hopefully this is super helpful for you. But if you're the type of family that's like, yeah, I think we need some help with this, just know that the pricing for our admissions package is going up on March 1st. And if you book a consult tonight, then you can get in and talk with us and talk through your options, learn more about the service, see if it's for you. And if it is, then you'd have the current pricing, not the increased pricing that's starting next month.
Thank you, sir. And I'm just in case anyone's using their phone for the QR. Here's a bigger bigger QR code, same QR code. But anyway, I'm gonna just stop sharing, and I would say I know we ran along, but I hope this was helpful. Like, thank you guys for the engagement, for the questions, all that stuff.
Yes.
Tried to get everything we could to you. So, like I said, if you just were kind of curious to go like, am I on track? Am I doing what we should be doing? Grab a quick consult, and we're happy to chat with you. Um, and we'll go from there. But otherwise, again, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks, JP.
have a
Awesome.
wonderful night,
Jason, too.
everybody.
Yeah, everybody have a great evening. Thanks for attending tonight. We wish you the very best.